Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So today we are reading from Canto number 11, chapter 16, entitled The Lord's Opulence, and in chronological order, I believe the verse is verse number 41, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And pardon me, we are in the Nitai Gaur Chandrodaya Mandir. What is it called this?
New Chandrodaya.
New Chandrodaya Mandir. And how do I pronounce the place? Almvyik?
Almvyik Sweden.
Almvyik?
Almvyik Sweden.
Almvyik Sweden. Thank you.
Or guard.
Or God. In Sweden.
Because we have an A
With the two dots on it.
This is with a
ring
ring
over.
Oh, with a ring over it. Okay. So it's my great honor and pleasure to be amongst you wonderful devotees of Sweden, of Almvyik, of the new Chandrodaya Mandir. Our Srila Prabhupada's family is everywhere, all over the world. Prabhupada built a house where everyone can live. And what more proof can we ask for when I can find something close to the North Pole, where Prabhupada's movement is so much active and alive. And I, first of all, thank all of you, listeners who are present here, senior Vaishnavas, for giving me this opportunity to serve. My hundreds of obeisances to each one of you, and my thousands of obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, our Gaudiya Guru Acharyas, our Guru Varga. So today's verse is Etasti kirti taha sarvaha.
Etasti kirtiya sarvaha.
Samshaypena vibhutayaha.
Samshaypena vibhutaya.
Manovikara evaite.
Manovikara evaite.
Yatha vacha vidiyate.
Yatha vacha vidiyate.
Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Kindly repeat. Etaha.
Eta.
These.
Te.
To you. Kirtitaha.
Kirtita.
Describe. Sarvaha. All. Sankshipena. Briefly. Vibhutaya. Spiritual opulences. Manaha. Of the mind. Vikaraha. Transformations. Eva. Indeed. Ete. These. Yatha. Accordingly. Vacha. By words. Abhidhiyate is described. Translation. I have briefly described to you all my spiritual opulences and also the extraordinary material features of my creation, which are perceived by the mind and defined in different ways according to circumstances. Purport. According to Sanskrit grammar, and as confirmed by Srila Siddhar Swami, the words etaha and ete describe two distinct sets of the Lord's opulences. The Lord has described His opulent plenary expansions such as Vasudev, Narayana, the Super Soul, etc. And further, the Lord has described the outstanding features of the material creation, which are also included among the glories of the personality of Godhead. The plenary manifestations of the Lord, such as Vasudev, Narayan, etc., are all eternal, unchanging, transcendental features of the Lord and are indicated by the term etaha. The extraordinary aspects of material creation, however, are circumstantial and dependent on individual perception, and they are therefore described there by the words mano vikara evaite yatha vacha bhi diyate. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that by consistent logical application of synonyms, etaha refers to the Lord's eternal spiritual manifestations of symptoms. Etaha refers to the Lord's eternal spiritual manifestations beyond the perception of the material senses, whereas ete refers to those opulences that can be perceived by conditioned souls. He gives the example that the paraphernalia and the intimate associates of a king are all considered to be part and parcel of the king and therefore granted royal status. Similarly, the opulent features of material creation are reflected expansions of the Lord's personal opulences and thus may be considered non-different from Him. One should not, however, wrongly assume that such insignificant material opulences occupy the same status of the Lord's plenary features as the personality of Godhead, which are qualitatively and quantitatively equal to the Lord. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments as follows on these words. The Lord's external opulences are called mano vikaraha, or related to mental transformation. Because ordinary people perceive extraordinary features of the material world according to their personal state of mind, thus the word vacha vidhyate indicates that conditioned souls describe the Lord's material creation according to specific material circumstances. Because of the circumstantial relative definitions of material opulence, such opulence is never to be considered a direct plenary manifestation of the Lord's personal form. When one's state of mind is transformed into a favorable or affectionate state, one defines a manifestation of the Lord's energy as my son, my father, my husband, my uncle, the son of my brother, my friend, and so on. One forgets that every living entity is actually part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that whatever opulences, talents, or outstanding features one may exhibit are actually the potencies of the Lord. Similarly, when the mind is transformed into a negative or inimical state, one thinks this person will be the ruin of me. This person must be finished by me. He is my enemy, or I am his enemy. He is a killer, or he should be killed. The negative state of mind is also expressed when one is attracted to the extraordinary material aspects of particular persons or objects, but forgets that they are manifestations of the potency of the personality of Godhead. Even the demigod Indra, who is quite obviously a manifestation of the Lord's material opulences, is misunderstood by others. For example, Indra's wife Sachi thinks that Indra is my husband, whereas Aditi thinks he is my son. Jayanta thinks that he is my father. Brihaspati thinks that he is my disciple, whereas the demons feel that Indra is their personal enemy. Thus, different personalities define him according to their mental state. The Lord's material opulences, being relatively perceived, are therefore called manovikara, which means they are dependent on mental states. This relative perception is material because it does not recognize the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the actual source of the particular opulence. If one sees Lord Krishna as the source of all opulences and gives up all desire to enjoy or possess the Lord's opulences, then one can see the spiritual nature of these opulences. At that time, even though one may continue to perceive the variety and distinctions of the material world, one will become perfect in Krishna consciousness. One should not conclude, as do the widest philosophers, that the Lord's spiritual manifestation in the Vishnu Tattva and liberated Jiva categories are also products of relative perception and mental states. This useless idea is contrary to the entire body of the Supreme Personality of God's teachings to Sri Uddhav. According to Sri Jiva Goswami, the word Vacha also indicates the various Vedic literatures that describe the particular processes by which the Lord manifests his spiritual and material opulences. And in this context, Yatha indicates the specific procedures of manifestation and creation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Aradhyo Bhagwan Vrajesh Tanayastadham Vrindavanam Ramya Kachid Upasna Vrajavadu Vargena Taya Kalpita Srimat Bhagavata Purana Yamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Mataidam Nayatraya Graha Paraha. Sri Panchatattva ki Srila Prabhupada Brahma Padma Gaudiya Sampradaya Acharya Guru Var ki Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. So again, my humble obeisances to each one of you, and I seek your blessings so that whatever words that emanate from my mouth are pleasing to all the listeners, to all the assembled Vaishnavas, and to our Acharyas, to Srila Prabhupada. If there is something that you may like, all credit would go to Srila Prabhupada and his followers and our Acharyas. And if there's some mistakes, I ask for forgiveness in advance. It would just be simply my foolishness. So, in this chapter, in Canto 11, entitled the chapter number 16, entitled The Lord's Opulence, this is a discussion, rather instruction, to Uddhav by Lord Krishna. Before Krishna is leaving, winding up his pastimes, going back to Golok, he instructs this wonderful messages to Uddhav. Just like Arjun was instructed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, those instructions are called Bhagavad Gita. And these instructions here They are called Uddhav Gita. Because whatever the Lord speaks, it's like a song. It's so sweet. In Brahma Samhita, there is a wonderful verse, I think it's verse number 56, that says, Shriya Kantaha Kantaha Parama Purushaha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumis Chintamani Ganamai Toyam Amrutam Katha Ganam Natyam Gamana Picha Vamshi Priya Sakhi Chidananda, etc., etc. So he says, Katha Ganam Natyam. Whenever any residents of Golok, they speak as if they are Ganam, means to sing, Gita. So obviously, whatever Krishna speaks, it's like a song. That is why it is also known as, these instructions are known as Uddhav Gita. And Katha Ganam Natyam Gamana Picha. And when the residents of Golok Vrindavan, or the spiritual sky, when they are walking, it seems like they are dancing. Katha Ganam Natyam Gamana Picha. This is the beauty of the spiritual, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and spiritual entities. So in this, Krishna, in the Uddhav Gita, Krishna tells Uddhav, yes, I had also instructed Arjuna in the previous verses. I will very briefly try to summarize the chapter so far. So it kind of, today's verse will fall into place. Krishna tells, when Uddhav asks some wonderful questions, Krishna tells, yes, similar questions were asked by Arjuna also about my opulence. And I spoke this to him as well, about my specific potencies, about my knowledge, about my strength, about my influence, and so on. And Krishna tells Uddhav in the Gita that I am the soul of all beings. I am the Paramatma. He is the expansion that happens to be in each and every atom, not only living entity. Paramanu chayantarastam andam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. He is present in each and every atom. As a matter of fact, someone may ask, how is he present in the atom? A very simple scientific analysis will tell us that one who has studied basic science in school or college, the atom structure, even by modern science, has shown that there is a nucleus, a proton and an electron, and they are having non-stop revolutions at very high speed. So where are they getting that energy from? Because within the nucleus, Paramatma is present. And also if we see the rendering or the image that they have shown of Paramatma in the atom, if you've seen the Upanishad cover, some of the different versions, they show that. Or even the Science of Self-Realization book has that page cover with the Paramatma standing in the center and with the protons and electrons. They are rotating at a very high speed. And as a matter of fact, if we think a little bit further, when somebody artificially tries to force Paramatma out of it, then there is a nuclear fusion or a bomb. There's so much energy generated out of that small atom just by Paramatma leaving. And that is why so much energy is generated and a destructive power is there. Because when the splitting of the atom means they are actually, the scientists or the nuclear physicists, they try to basically stop the revolutions of the protons and electrons and break their orbit. When that happens, Paramatma leaves. It's not a natural state. It's like, it is kind of devastating when the Paramatma leaves the body also, right? It's basically destructive by nature. The body is finished because the body starts deteriorating. So in an analogous way, the atom also has Paramatma. So Krishna tells Uddhav that I am the soul of all beings. And he is basically the expansion. All the Paramatmas are expansions of Shirodakshai Vishnu. As we all know, that Krishna expands himself in Golok Vrindavan. On his right, he expands as Sri Baldev, as his Sandhini Shakti. And on his left, he expands simultaneously as his Haladini Shakti, Srimati Radharani. And he himself is the Samvit Shakti. And actually speaking, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Govinda, the son of Rajendra Nandan, or the son of Nanda Maharaj, or the son of Yashoda Mai, or Radharaman, or Radha Gopinath, or the original personality of Godhead, he actually doesn't participate directly in the manifestations and creations. He does it, everything he does through Balram. So Balram is the one who is responsible for all the spiritual and material creations. From Balram, there are expansions. The first expansions are the Chaturvyu, Vasudev Sankarshan, Vasudev Pradyumna Aniruddha Sankarshan. That is called the first quadruple expansion. And from there he expands into his different swarupas, what they call is Swa-amshas. And they are manifest in Mathura, in Dwarka, and further into Vaikuntha. From the first quadruple expansion, Sankarshan, another expansions, 4 sets happens. Vasudev, Pradyumna, Aniruddha and Sankarshan. And from that Sankarshan, again other expansions of the different Narayanas in Vaikuntha and different Purusha avatars that happen from the Narayanas, Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksai Vishnu, Sirodaksai Vishnu, and from Sirodaksai Vishnu, as many atoms are there, as many living entities are there, he expands himself into their hearts or into the nucleus of the atom as Paramatma. So Uddhav wants to know from Krishna his various opulences. So Krishna reveals to him, just like he has revealed to Arjuna, his universal form. He explains about his power, his beauty, his fame, his opulence, what is good fortune, valor, etc., humility, charity, charm. All these are his expansions, spiritual and even the highly opulent material things that we perceive are all his expansions. So it is also explained in this chapter that these material opulences are not true. In one sense, one should not misconceive them or misinterpret them as direct expansions of Krishna. They are not true because they are temporary in nature. That is the reason they don't go. The word, when we use Sat, let's say for example, when Vyasadeva uses the word Satyam Param Dhimahi in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, the very first verse, at the end of the first verse he says Satyam Param Dhimahi. So Satyam, what does the word Satyam mean? Most people translate the word Satyam, especially those who come from the Indian background, they use the word Satya as truth. Truth is a secondary meaning of Satya. Satya basically means eternal. And because Krishna is eternal, Krishna is the eternal truth. And therefore, because Krishna is the eternal truth, all truth emanates from him. So the secondary meaning of Satya is truth. Because in Sanskrit they also say Satyam Satyam, meaning very truthfully. That's what it means. Truthfully I say. So somebody can use the same word Satya for the word truthful. But the original root or the original meaning of the word Satya means eternal. And anything that is not eternal is not a direct manifestation of Krishna. So that is what Bhagavatam is telling us in this chapter. So one should not meditate on things that are temporary. And one can meditate on them when one is in a very neophyte stage. Then it helps them to remember Krishna. So as we see in the chapter, Krishna says that amongst the Vedas, teacher of the Vedas is Lord Brahma. Now Lord Brahma is material. All these are amongst the mantras, he is Omkar. Now, Omkar is not material, it is spiritual because it is eternal, the sound vibration. And just like Prabhupada mentions, I think again in the 11th canto somewhere, I had read that there is no difference between the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and the Omkar. But Omkar is more or less, it explains that the energy and the energetic, and Mahamantra is more explicit. Omkar, Om, so many yogis and so many Brahmavadis and even Mayavadis, they like to chant Om. But Vaishnavas like to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra because it is very, very specific. It is addressed specifically to Krishna and Krishna's internal potencies headed by Srimati Radharani. So Prabhupada says that actually the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is basically the energetic, which is Krishna, and his prime energies, which is Srimati Radharani. So Om also is basically Krishna is present in his sound vibration, and along with his energy, he is present in Om. So Krishna says amongst the mantras, he is Omkar or Om. Amongst the sacred mantras, he is Gayatri. Amongst demigods, he is Indra. And again, amongst the sons of Aditi, he is Vishnu. So it's amazing. Aditi was married to Kashyap Muni. And Krishna also appeared to them because they, as one of the Prajapatis also we know that in Krishna book and in Bhagavatam it is explained that how did Vishnu or Krishna appear to Vasudeva and Devaki? Because they had actually had a very strong desire. They had in their past lives they were actually Prajapatis, Vrishni and Sutapa, Vrishnigarba and Sutapa. So Krishna is also known as Vrishnigarba. Vishnu is known as Vrishnigarba because he appeared to them in one of those Satya Yuga millenniums, and when he appeared, because they were pleased by his austerities, he says, "What can I do for you?" So he said, "We would like to have a son exactly like you." So he says, "There's nobody like me except me, so I have to appear. And not only that, because I'm so pleased with you, I will appear in birth after birth for 3 births." So then he appeared as Vrishnigarma in Prishni and Sutapa, and then he appeared in the next birth as Kashyap Muni and Aditi, and then in the next birth in Dwapar Yuga he appeared as Vasudeva and Devaki, those two personalities, and then Krishna appeared as Vasudeva Krishna. When R comes, especially the Swedish must be very, very aware of this, because I see that in your letters you have the dots and it's just like when there is on A there is a line and then it becomes A, the pronunciation changes, that means off. So Vasudeva, when somebody addresses Vasudeva, it is Krishna's father, but when somebody says Vasudeva, then it is Krishna. It's like sometimes we all make this mistake, even when we are chanting Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra. We say Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste. Most of us say, we see Saraswati Devi. It is not Saraswati Devi, it is Saraswati Devi. Because Saraswati Devi, Saraswati means basically either it could be the goddess of learning, or Saraswati here indicates Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada. So he is the spiritual son initiated by Saraswati Thakur. Therefore he is known as Saraswati. So in his Pranam Mantra we are actually glorifying, when we are saying Saraswati Devi, we are glorifying him as the transcendental son of the great personality Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. So of course, most of us, the Westerners, have a difficult time pronouncing, but there's nothing wrong with it. But sometimes if we are made aware, then we should make a conscientious effort. But I have seen this happen even to most Indian bodies. They even use the word Saraswati Devi. So we should be a little conscious, because Prabhupada was very particular. He was a perfectionist in everything. And we have to follow in the footsteps of the great devotees. Mahajana Jaina Gata Sapantaha Dharmasva Tattva Nihitam Guhyam. So like this, he's saying that I am the son of Aditi, Vishnu. So in Vasus, he is Agni. And Rudras, he is Lord Shiva. In the saintly demigods, he is Naradji. And in the saintly Brahmins, he is Bhrigumuni. And in the cows, he is Kamadhenu. Kamadhenu is those cows that can fulfill your desires. There are certain cows that are known as Kama. Kama means desires and Dhenu means cows. So, whatever your desires are, when you pray to that cow, those cows can fulfill your desires just like Kalpavrikshas. So, in Gola Vrindavan, most of them are Surbhi Kamdhenus. And that is why, if we really realize, those who are Brahmin initiated, when we offer bhoga to Krishna, we do these mudras. So there is a Dhenu mudra, right? And in Dhenu mudra, that is actually Kamdhenu. And that Kamdhenu is helping us so that our bhoga that we are offering is full of purity and it is completely transcendental in nature, so that Krishna can enjoy it to its fullest extent. That is the reason why we do that mudra, the Kamdhenu mudra. I haven't worshipped on the altar for many, many years now, so I forgot. Does anybody remember the Kamdhenu, the Dhenu mudra? Okay, there you go. So she looks like a cow, you see? So that's the Kamdhenu. They're the horns of the cow, and then the fingers are crossed like that, and then you can see that it is like the mouth of a cow. So you offer that on each and every item, correct? Yeah. Before you offer before you start saying the mantras. So that Kamdhenu mudra has a particular reason. So Krishna says that amongst the cows, he is the Kamdhenu. Amongst the perfected beings, he is Kapila. Amongst the birds, he is Garuda. Amongst the divided Vedas, the person who divided the Vedas is Krishna Dvaipana Vyasdev. So, amongst Bhagwan, the personalities of Godhead, he is Vasudeva. Krishna is very clearly mentioning this. And then he says that amongst devotees, you yourself, Uddhav, you are the perfect example of the devotees. Among Kim Purushas, Hanumanji, and amongst jewels, the jewel ruby, the red one. And amongst the beautiful things, the lotus cup. Amongst the grass, the kusha grass. Amongst oblations that we offer in the sacrifices, ghee. And amongst the enterprising, those who are extremely enterprising, in good in business and making money, etc., he is fortune. Amongst cheaters, he's gambling. So like that. And amongst devotees, the devotional activities that the devotees perform, it is Krishna himself. He's saying that. Amongst water, he is the sweet taste. Even in Bhagavad Gita he says, Rasoham apso konteya. I am the taste in water, O son of Kunti. Amongst the brilliant luminaries, it's the sun and the effulgent planets. And amongst the effulgent bodies, he is the sun, moon and stars. Amongst the heroes, he is Arjuna. Amongst the different functions, like the 10 senses that we have, the 5 working senses and the 5 subtle senses, taste, etc., aroma, touch, sound, that's Krishna. And the different 5 Mahatattva, or the 5 gross elements, earth, water, air, fire, ether, it's all Krishna. Krishna says, that's who I am. So here in this verse, Krishna is saying that I have briefly described to you all my spiritual opulences. So he has described about himself, about Vishnu, about Paramatma, about his expansions, and he has also described extraordinary material features. That includes the different demigods and the saintly personalities and even things like the birds and the trees and and the different manifestations like even gems and different luminaries like the sun, moon, stars, the oblations, ghee, all these things, they are considered extraordinary material features of my creation which are perceived by the mind and defined in different ways according to circumstances. So this is an amazing way how Krishna explains this to Uddhav. He says that, and here the explanation given is amazing based on the commentaries of Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and also Sridhar Swami. Here in this purport it has been quoted that Sridhar Swami has actually analyzed the Sanskrit grammar. Sanskrit is very complicated. And sometimes even the biggest scholars cannot figure out a lot of things, especially only a pure Vaishnava knows exactly what a particular word means. Even grammatically, in Sanskrit, many words have many different meanings and they are all correct. But the absolute meaning, or the meaning, the contextual meaning, or the inner or deeper meaning, only a pure Vaishnava can see through it and can understand it. I will give you a very simple example. I am not a scholar in Sanskrit or anything. I know very, very little, and that too from Srila Prabhupada's books. I have not made any special endeavors to learn Sanskrit. However, one day I would like to, but not to become a scholar, to understand the devotional books better. Time permitting, and hopefully that desire will be fulfilled. But giving a few examples in these words of Sanskrit. For example, a very common word in Sanskrit we can take as, let's say, Rameshwar. It's a Sanskrit word. It's a place in South India also. It's a tirtha. It's a holy place. So, it's a Sanskrit word, Rameshwar. Now, there are scholars in Sanskrit who are Shaivites, who are strong followers of Lord Shiva. So they consider Lord Shiva as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything is Lord Shiva. And so they translate the word Rameshwar as very differently. They translate it as, because the Shivlinga was established by Lord Ramachandra, and Lord Ramachandra personally worshipped Lord Shiva in that place called Rameshwar today, just before he went to conquest on Sri Lanka. He performed Abhishek on a Shivlinga, and that place became known as Rameshwar. So the Shaivites in South India, and they were big scholars too. There are a lot of scholars in sense, they said, Rameshwar. So, oh Shiva, your name is Rameshwar. Meaning, you are the Ishwar of Lord Rama. You are the master of Lord Rama. Even Rama is worshipping you. So grammatically they are correct. Ram Ishwar, the master of Ram. In Sanskrit is amazing. Sometimes the words can be put first and the last word can mean the first, and the first word can mean the last. A lot of Sanskrit words are a combination. One big word can be a combination of sometimes one or two or maybe three words. So that's called Sandhi Viched. Then you have to break it down, like you see how in a shloka, how the words are broken down. And if you look at the translation, sometimes the word is all one if you look at the Devanagari or the Sanskrit word. But then it is broken into words because there is a bunch of words in one particular word of Sanskrit. So Rameshwar, Shiva, you are the Ishwar of Lord Rama. But the Vaishnavas, their grammar is also perfect and their understanding is perfect. Rameshwar, Ram, you are Ishwar. You are the Supreme Lord. So this is Sanskrit. So the point is that here he is talking about, according to Sanskrit grammar, as confirmed by Sridhar Swami, the words etaha and ete describe two distinct sets. And what are they? The two distinct sets are the plenary manifestations that apply, for example, to Vasudeva, to Narayana, to Paramatma, where Krishna personally expands himself as his subjective portions, as his swa-amshas, his personal expansions. So to that the word etaha applies. The word specifically, Sridhar Swami has explained that. And he says that the words where the word eta applies is as extraordinary aspects of material creation. So within the material creation, there are extraordinary material things that have so much opulence. We say, wow, this is amazing. Like Krishna says, among the metals, he is gold. So everybody loves gold. Everybody says, wow, whether one is a believer or not believer. All the women, they love rubies and diamonds, right? But that Krishna says that he is the ruby. So, but these are known as the extraordinary aspects of material creation, and they are circumstantial. And they are not permanent in nature. They are temporary, and they are dependent on the individual's sense perception. So this verse is very particularly distinguishing between the eternal plenary manifestations by the word etaha and ete by the extraordinary material opulences, aspects of material opulences in this creation. So in this purport also it is said that the Jiva Goswami explains that by consistent logical application of synonyms, etaha refers to the Lord's eternal spiritual manifestations, which are beyond the perception of material senses. So one cannot understand the Supreme Lord. It is very difficult to understand the Supreme Lord in his transcendental form. Extremely difficult. Even for devotees, even for yogis. Pantastu koti satvatsara sampragamyo vayu rathapi manaso muni pungavanam soapi yasti yat prapad simni achintya guna tattve govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. After sitting and drilling the respiration, the yogis in the Satya Yuga especially, they control their breathing. They could stop their breathing for thousands of years. Can you imagine stopping your breathing? They can control. It's called the pranavayu. There is a life air in all of us. Excuse me. This life air within the body, actually, as long as the life air is there, we are alive. Just like the Paramatma and the Atma, they are present. Similarly, the life air also, with special air inside, that is simultaneously present, just like the Atma and Paramatma. The moment Atma, Paramatma leave, the life air also leaves. And that life air is supporting us, that is keeping us alive. So, many of these yogis, they can control the life air. They bring that under control by meditation. By drilling the respiration, they do. Nowadays, yoga has become very famous all over the world. They call alom, vilom. They breathe and they exhale, inhale, exhale, and then there are certain stages of inhaling and exhaling where you stop, but you're still alive. So much control is there. So after doing that, they are able to realize the higher aspect of the soul, Atma, Paramatma, and some of them are able to actually see the light that emanates from the lotus feet of Krishna's toes, nails. After millions and millions of years in meditation, Pantastu Koti Satavatsara. Satavatsara means millions, thousands. So what to talk? So it's not difficult, it is very difficult to perceive the transcendental form of the Lord. It's not so easy. Only a transcendentalist or a pure devotee can perceive the form of the Lord. So what about the rest of the people? What about the rest of the transcendentalists, or what of the rest of the persons who are interested in spiritual life? So Krishna has made this wonderful arrangement through his material opulences, through his universal form, so that somehow or the other people can concentrate and try to remember him as much as possible through the different manifestations. So Jiva Goswami is saying that Lord's eternal spiritual man beyond the perception of the material senses, whereas ete refers to those opulences that can be perceived by conditioned souls. He gives the example of the paraphernalia and intimate associations of a king are all considered to be part and parcel. So for example, he says that a king or a royal, let's say for example, I don't know, do they still have, like in Canada, we have still considered the royal family, the Queen of England is still on the bills, on the Canadian dollar, and they still call it the crown. Even the judges who sit in the courtroom, they are under the crown, under the British. They still have that system, although it is a democratic process. So whenever there is a case, the crown has decided, when they're in the case, and finally it's the crown's decision. So that judge is basically a representative of the Queen who is in England, Queen Elizabeth, who is the present Queen. So the Queen's or the King's paraphernalia, or the Queen herself or her associates or her servants, are actually representations, or in one sense considered a part and parcel of the Queen. So the Queen's expansions are her ministers, her advisors, or the judges who are sitting in the court, the law, etc. And also her paraphernalia, like the seal. This is the Queen's seal, the King's seal. In the old days, when they used to come, a simple messenger would come, but he would get so much importance because he had the seal, official seal of the king or the queen. When he read the message, everybody would be in attention. Everybody would pay so much respect to the words that are being written out, because they are non-different, or they are expansions of the energies of that particular person. Make sense? Same way, Jiva Goswami says, but at the same time, one should not worship that seal or worship that messenger who has brought that message. The worshipable personality is the queen or the king. It's amazing. It's like this Achintya Bheda Veda Tattva. It belongs to the king, it's a part of the king, but it is not the king. So therefore, it is very clearly mentioned that one should not, however, wrongly assume that such insignificant material opulences occupy the same status as the Lord's plenary features. So one can say that, oh great, rubies. Krishna just said that he is rubies. So then shall we consider ruby and worship him and put ruby on the altar and give the ruby the same paraphernalia and obeisances and all Abhishek, and on Janmashtami, on Gaur Purnima, and do all the different artis and offer bhoga to a piece of ruby? No, we don't do that. That's what Jiva Goswami is explaining, that these material opulences are a temporary manifestation so that we can remember the Lord. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he also comments. He says that on this verse, the Lord's external opulences are called manovikara. Manovikara means the mind. Mano means mind and vikara means manifestations based on our mind, based on our perception. So for example, the examples are given that supposing if someone is saying, this is my son, this is my father, this is my uncle, this is my friend, this is the son of my son, or this is my grandson, or this is the son of my daughter. So these are all human beings. But Jai, Shri Panchatattva ki Jai ho. These are all human beings. But who are human beings? We are all spirit souls. And who are spirit souls? We are all part and parcels of Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamai, what is that verse? Mamai loka jiva bhuta sanatana. Mamai amsha. All the jivas are my anshas. They are my part and parcels. But how do we perceive our family members? We don't perceive them as Krishna's part and parcels. Pure devotees perceive them as Krishna's part and parcels. For example, immediately one thought comes to my mind when Bhakti Vinod Thakur, when actually he was in Jagannath Puri, and little Bimal Prasad, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, when the mangoes came, he was a big magistrate, and many villagers and all used to bring him gifts, and they used to get nice mangoes from the farm. So without offering, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he took one mango. He was very young, maybe a 5-year-old boy at that time. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that, I am your father, so I have to chastise you. But I know you are a spirit soul, but it is for your own good. So here Bhaktivinoda Thakur is distinctly seeing him as a part and parcel of Krishna, but also he is seeing him as his son. So it is the same person, but it is the perception. The perception is important. So the material manifestations, when we see the different opulences of Krishna, then we should be reminded of Krishna. When we are thirsty and we have a nice glass of water, and that water can quench your thirst, then we can simply say, "Oh Krishna, you are so wonderful. Raso aham apsu akanteya." He is present. There is no reason not to be Krishna conscious. In other words, Krishna's presence is perceived everywhere. And that is why one of the names of Krishna, or the most appropriate name of the Supreme Lord, is Vishnu. Vishnu means one who is present everywhere. If you translate Sanskrit word Vishnu into common English, it means all pervading. One who is present, one whose presence is everywhere. Just like in English we call him omnipresent. Right? God's definition, most of the English speaking world, they say is omnipresent, is omniscient, and he is omnipotent. And we also have the same philosophy. Krishna has many potencies, omnipotent. Nam Akari Bahuda, Nija Sarva Shaktis. He's got many, many energies. He's omnipresent. He's present everywhere. He's present in water, he's present in rubies, he's present in ghee, he's present in Indra, he's present in Bhrigumuni, he's present in Naradji, he's present as the Rudras, as Lord Shiva, he's present as the greatest mountains, as the Himalayas. So like that, best rivers, he's present as the Ganga. So like that, so many, everywhere Krishna's presence is there. Mother Kunti says, Namasya Purusham Madhyam Ishwara Prakrite Param Alaksham Sarva Bhutanam Antar Bahiravastitam. So she says that Namasya Purusha Madhyam. Oh Krishna, I know you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishwara Prakrite Param. You are the Supreme Lord who is beyond the three modes of material nature. Alaksham Sarva Bhutanam. But not everybody can see you in your transcendental form. Antar Bahiravastitam, although you are situated everywhere, inside and outside. It's very difficult to perceive you, O Krishna, although you are present everywhere. Your presence is there. So like that, the different relations that we have, these are all parts and parcels of Krishna. That is why pure Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada has mentioned this in many places, that one should not conclude as to, like many Voidists or philosophers, that everything is a product of our imagination, because actually these manifestations are our consciousness. That if I call one particular person my son, or somebody else calls him, like the example is given that Sachi is the wife of Indra, so she thinks that my husband is Indra, and Aditi thinks that Indra is my son, and Brihaspati is thinking Indra is my disciple. It's the same person. But actually, Indra is a manifestation of Krishna in heavenly planets as the king. So, depending on who is perceiving that object, one is, according to the consciousness, one is imagining a particular relationship or a bond with that particular object based on the consciousness. So pure devotee's consciousness, Prabhupada has mentioned, is that everything he sees in relation to Krishna. Manasa deha geha jo kuch mora arpilu tuapade nanda kishora. Everything belongs to you, O Krishna. Everything is you. Ishavasham idam sarvam yat kinchana jagatyam jagat. Everything is yours, O Krishna. You are everything. You are present. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, there is this verse, I can't remember the exact Sanskrit, that you are in everything and everything is in you. You rest, everything rests on you, just like the pearl necklace rests on your chest. Everything rests on Krishna. But because we do not have that we have not gone beyond the bodily concept, we have not gone beyond the three modes of material nature, we cannot perceive the transcendental form of Krishna. Supposing if Krishna were to actually walk through that door, some of us will have doubts. Oh, this guy looks nice. He's looked like a very nice drama company. He's dressed so nicely. He looks so nice, very nicely dressed. Maybe we will have doubts that he's Krishna. He's just some actor. Or sometimes when we have Janmashtami plays, we have nice makeup. Somebody dresses very nicely as Krishna. And sometimes, we have seen that they even put the blue makeup and make him look like Krishna with the peacock feather and nice lotus lips and everything. And he looks like Krishna. But we know he's not Krishna because our perception is different. So it's all about consciousness. That's what this verse is basically boiling down to. The circumstantial different relative definitions are not direct manifestations of the Supreme Lord. And based on our perception, we perceive things. And Krishna has made it very easy to remember him because everything around us, even in Bhagavatam, I think in the second canto, he says that the rivers are like, and the mountains are like, and the caves. So the mountain is like reminding of the nose, and the different lakes, etc., are like his eyes, etc. So when we see a lake, when we see a mountain, when we see a tree, when we see a nice bird, when we see an eagle, we can think of Garuda, like that. And that is the main reason why our Vedic culture has even given us the Vedic names. What is the reason behind it? It's very scientific. And Prabhupada and our acharyas give us initiation. Why do they change the names to spiritual names or related to Krishna or the devotees' names? So that we are constantly reminded us of Krishna. Why do we wear tilak? Some people argue, even Indians, oh, you don't have to wear dhoti, kurta, or go to the temple and tilak to know God. God is in your heart. You have to realize, you have to be so pure. You don't need all these external things. Even the Mayavadis, they say that. Actually, I am God. Very soon I will realize it. I don't need all these external things. This is all very nimna. Nimna meaning very low level bhakti. All this is only required to a certain stage, which is such nonsense. That is why Mahaprabhu has said, Bhagavad Suno, Bhagavad Sthane. One should hear scripture, listen to scripture, the translations, the purports, the different realizations from Bhagavats, from Vaishnavas who have realized Bhagavad. So, wearing the tilak, why we should wear tilak? It's good not only for our protection, because the Yamduts have been told by Vishnudut in the case of a Jamil that anyone who wears tilak, kanthimala, or who speaks the holy name of the Lord at the time of death, you have no jurisdiction over them. Not only it's the protection, but also Krishna consciousness has always multiple advantages. When you go out, when you have a tilak, when you have the kanthimala, somebody, just a stranger may ask, what is this? Like, I was leaving the Schiphol airport in Netherlands, and my bag was extra scanned. After the scanning, it went to a different section, so he opened it. And when the officer opened it to check, so I had my tilak little container. So he opened it and he was looking, what is this? So I said, I still had a little bit of tilak on my forehead. So I said, this is the holy clay. We are followers of Hare Krishna. Oh, he said, Hare Krishna. So he was an elderly gentleman. He had heard about Hare Krishna. So this reminds people of Krishna. Knowingly or unknowingly, they can speak the word, pronounce the transcendental vibration, Krishna. It gets them eternal benefit. It will give, and not only him, but maybe there were 3 other officers. When he opened that, they were looking. They were thinking, what is this? Maybe they were thinking some kind of other paraphernalia that they were not familiar with. Something strange. So they were also watching. So when he said Hare Krishna, I said Krishna, he said Krishna, they heard Krishna. And there were a few other passengers behind me. They also heard the word Krishna, Hare Krishna. So it is perception. Everything is perception. Pure bhakti, even in the Grihastha ashram, pure bhakti, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and our acharyas, everything is about Krishna consciousness. My child, if we look at it, that this is not mine actually, I am just in charge. It is actually Krishna's property. My wife is Krishna's property. My house is Krishna's property. Everything that I have, just like a bank's cashier. Prabhupada gives this example, and I like to give it again and again. Many of the listeners have heard this many times, but it's a very wonderful example that keeps us reminded, that will remind us that the bank's cashier has millions of euros or dollars in his drawer, but when the bank closes at 5 p.m., every euro cent or every Swedish crown cent is in perfect order, because he knows that he is in charge, but it is not his. So similarly, a devotee feels that somehow or the other, by his karma, Krishna has made him responsible for a certain set of duties, for his child, for his wife, for his relatives, for his friends, for the wherever he works, because whatever he works, he makes money. It is for keeping the mind, body and soul together just enough to develop Krishna consciousness, not only for himself but for his family. And if everything is done with that consciousness, then it is 100% pure Krishna consciousness. It's a matter of perception. Then that is the meaning of when it says a pure devotee sees Krishna everywhere. This is the actual meaning of this verses. If you look at it, it's the consciousness or the state of mind that is manifested, that manifests how to see Krishna everywhere. So thank you very much. If there's any questions or any comments, please feel free. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ji ki.
Jai.
Just one should not worship that which represents Krishna like that. You gave the example of the queen sending some message or something. You don't worship the messenger or the letter or whatever, but it is actually her in one sense also.
Yes.
But Guru is another category.
Absolutely. That is considered as the etaha category, not the ete as explained earlier.
Okay.
The Guru is Krishna's Kripamurti. So Sakshat Haritvena Samasta Shastra Uktastatha Bhava Yata Eva Sabdi Kinto Prabhoya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Sri Charnaravindam. So in this verse there are two distinctions. One is the transcendental expansions of Krishna, and a pure Guru is a transcendental expansion of Nityananda Prabhu, of Baldev. So as far as Kripa is concerned, he is non-different. Although for Leela purposes he is different. For the purpose of Leela, he is different. But the words of the Vani of the Guru is non-different from Guru. Sakshat Haritvena Samasta Shastra. He is as good as Hari. That is why we even Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra, Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Pranam Mantra, Gaura Vani Pracharine, Gaura Shakti Swarupaya, Rupa Nuda Varayate. Gaura Shakti. So here all Shakti is avatar of Krishna. So they are non-different, and especially they are speaking Vani as it is, without even an iota of deviation. So they are worshipped as good as Krishna. That is why the Guru accepts worship. Prabhupada has explained that why one should worship Guru, because he is a pure representative of Krishna. And that example cannot be applied for the material example that we had discussed about the queen and the messenger. But it is a crude example for the material manifestation. That queen and her messenger, the example that we gave is for to make us understand that if queen is considered the supreme personality of Godhead as an example, and the messengers are considered as material expansions. So those material expansions remind us of the queen, or the messenger, or the letter, or the seal reminds us of the queen. But that messenger or that letter or that seal is not the queen. But Guru is a representative of Krishna. He is not Krishna. But it reminds us concept of Krishna, and Guru can take us to Krishna. So there is a difference in those two examples, although they look almost similar. Makes sense, Prabhu?
Bharata, he was worshipping Lord Ram's shoes.
Yes.
So that's also another example of, that.
Of the paraphernalia.
Yeah, paraphernalia.
Yes. So Lord's paraphernalia and the Lord is completely transcendental. Everything. In the Shastra it says Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's dham, and Krishna's paraphernalia. They are not different. Because our consciousness is that this is all Golok. And in Golok, everything is Chitta, everything is Chaitanya, everything is full of consciousness. There, if you say, my dear glass, can you come here? It will fly and come to you because he is a living person. He is not a dead, inanimate person. That everything is full of consciousness. Chidananda. Everything is full of consciousness. And nectar. Shriyakantaha kantaha parama purusha kalpataro dhruma bhumis chintamani kalpataro chidananda rupam paramapitada swadhyam apicha. And Krishna relishes each and every object in Golok. Swadhya. Swadhyam means to relish, to taste. Just like we can taste the sweetness of a person. Right? We normally say in our language, such a sweet baby, or such a sweet person he is. When you see him, he's full of sweetness. So that sweetness of that person, like we say, Prabhupada is so sweet, Prabhupada is so kind. So it is the quality that is manifesting. So all these paraphernalia, whether it is the thali or the plate or the ringing bell or all the different items, they are all actually Lord Balram's expansions. And in Golok, in Vaikuntha, they are real beings. They have a form. These are the forms. Just like we have a particular form, you have a Caucasian, Scandinavian body, I have an Indian body, I have a particular body, and the soul has, similarly in the spiritual world, the soul has a particular body. The soul can be a glass for Krishna, for his pleasure. And everything is considered in high respect. Uddhav says that I would like to become a blade of grass. So even becoming a blade of grass is in Golok or in Vrindavan is very esteemed. It is the desire of Uddhav. So he can get the dust of the lotus feet of the gopis, the gopas, and Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
So the Mahaprasadam of the Lord is not counted into it is counted into the opulence of the Lord, or is it in the Eta category?
Mahaprasad is both. Like Lord Narayana, he is so opulent. At the same time, he is Etaha. Prasadam is absolutely, it's very opulent because it is touched by the glance of Krishna or the lotus lips of Krishna. It is full of transcendental power. It delivers us. Prasadam is the one that delivers everyone. Everything started because of the sound vibration of Prasadam in 26th Avenue, New York. That's what made devotees. Today also, Prasadam is an integral part. How do you think people get attracted? It is not because of there's tasty food everywhere else. People spend hundreds of euros in a nice French restaurant. Very tasty stuff, whatever that is, what the dishes are. But they still keep coming back to the Hare Krishnas for more and more because there's something that you cannot describe. It is so transcendental. It has an eternal effect on us. So it is under the Etaha category, definitely. That's what I personally, that's my realization. It is not under the ete category.
That's why Prabhupada called it our secret weapon.
Secret weapon. Hari Hari.